So, hey, are you wondering what's going on with Live Golf, PGA Tour? Why can't they get along? What's the messaging behind this? What's the marketing behind this? Maybe they need to do something else. Maybe they need to, I don't know, unmarket themselves a little bit. What the heck is that all about? But I've got someone here today that'll tell us all about that, and that is the creator of UnMarketing, and that is Scott Stratten. And there he is. I had the pleasure of having Scott on the audio podcast, long form earlier, talked about some amazing things related to golf, some not. We're about how we treat people better as humans and how that actually, if you do it consistently, will actually positively affect your business. What a thing. What a thing.
What a thought.
Scott, how you doing, my friend? How's it going?
Oh, good. Fascinating. All right. What a thought that you could possibly do things that help your business by just being good.
I know it's bonkers, right? That we actually think this. Okay, so on the podcast, we're not gonna duplicate ourselves there. We do encourage our viewers here to hey, go back if you want to listen to that awesome conversation and those nuggets of wisdom that Scott was dropping on us for quite a few minutes there. I'll keep that link down below there for you. But now we're gonna hone in on something here that I wanted to bounce off of Scott and getting his take on, not being in the golf industry, which I think
Mm,
is an asset, not necessarily a liability. So hey, let's start before we actually get into the whole live versus PGA
yeah.
Tour thing. Why don't you let our viewers know, hey, who you are and what's going on with unmarketing? Tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah. I'm Scott, the creator of UnMarketing, and I've broken 90 once in my life, and which is also the same number of times I've broken 100. It was just one of those miracle rounds. Six books with my incredible co-author partner in business, and luckily for me, my wife Allison. uh, 500 plus keynotes at conferences, and it's all unmarketing, unbranding, unselling is simply understanding that we're always creating an impression all the time with what we're doing, and we can do things a way that is positive, or we can do things that a way that is negative, but either way those stories get told.
Well, talking about negative stories and not necessarily marketing yourself that well, it seems to me, following this story for almost a year now, that a lot of self-inflicted wounds on both sides of the tee box here with both
Mm,
Live Golf and also the PGA Tour. So first of all, I'm sure all of our viewers here have been living under a rock if you know anything about golf. What's gone in on there and kind of the
yeah.
adversity there and this fear of this kind of scarcity mindset rather than a growth mindset, which I know that you embrace here, Scott. So first of all,
Yeah.
overview. Why don't you tell us what your initial thoughts are on what both sides are doing and what they're doing wrong and maybe how they can change.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, and kind of, at least for me, being outside the industry, kind of came out of nowhere. Like, not a huge amount. It wasn't like a 5 year build up to this thing or anything. It was almost suddenly Greg Norman's like, "Hey, y'all want just a gajillion dollars?" And then kind of just opened up. And I, it's fascinating to me for a couple of things, because I'm all about David and Goliath. All about David and Goliath. I'm all about just taking down. I listen to Rage Against the Machine daily. If I put it that way, it's just I'm always about rocking the boat, and this is not that to me somewhat. And there's a whole, like, I just wish if it was just somebody else with a bucket of money that we could talk about business versus business, but it's from where it's coming from, and the money and the human rights violations. So that whole thing there is just a clusterfuck that can't be ignored. But we talk about the business side of these things. Okay, when it comes to something coming in new and trying to break into an establishment, a brand, we can use sports, other sports as examples. People trying to, especially NFL has had some people trying to compete with them. NFL became the NFL because the AFL and NFL merged. Two competitors going at each other, and the XFL has tried. World League football. I have a Scottish Claymores jersey still in my closet from the Scotland team they had there, and we tried. Hockey's got some competition. You could look at more in the minors and how they actually have to compete for stuff. And the way that I looked at this when I first heard about it was, well, they just can't run another tour. Meaning, it's just same courses, same idea, same point system, all that type of stuff. They're going to have to do some differences that kind of the XFL was doing. Like they're doing, hey, we're going to do the cameras differently or this. But understand a couple of things. Just things are a certain way, not always just because that's always the way it's been, but it's been that way through experience. The reason why we put cameras here and here and here is because of this, and we've learned throughout the years that the like watching basketball, we had watched a game of basketball partially because one of the cameras went on the fritz at one of the games and they had a different angle to watch, and we're just like, this is, I can't deal with this just from a simple angle. So we don't like that change a lot of times. And golf isn't exactly a sport that embraces change in a lot of things. From, like, I don't know how many sports people have a rule book in their back pocket walking around, but golf is certainly about this and etiquette and rules. And this place comes in and says, oh yeah, what about this? And I think the only way that LIV could have made a actual splash and being an actual viable competitor in year one to PGA is they would have needed at least 2 or 3 more players out of the top 10, at least. Like, I think if they got Tiger, that would have been a different story to talk about, but Tiger's went the opposite route with it. And I think they would have needed that TV deal. They would have needed something to be on the screens when people are on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday coming into it. And were they going to do that, leading on to Sunday and the big, the end of the tournament, wherever it's going to be. And they didn't have that. And that really, really kind of, hurts them a lot, because a lot of the demographic, though, too, are still watching the TVs and the tournaments. Like, they had it online. They were streaming it here and streaming it there. I think it was Twitch and YouTube had some, or Prime might have had some. But you learn a couple of things because, well, who's got relationship with networks? The PGA. Who's got relationship with sponsors? PGA. And it's not about with the product you put out there. It's if can you put the product on the shelves that the people you want looking at it for there, or has the incumbent bought the shelf space. And that's what PGA is, I think, trying to do now too, is saying, all right, fine, you're not going away right now in a seemingly endless pit of money it's coming from. We're just going to let you be the bastard stepchild. And because it actually helped me learn a few things about golf. I didn't realize the majors weren't owned by PGA.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Like, I'm just a regular layman. I play around a year nowadays. Like, it's not my industry. I had no idea. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, they can't stop them. I had no idea about this stuff. So it opens up some of those things. And I think the problem is they also came out of the gate really aggressive, like whether it was Norman or whether it was Mickelson, where they're just like, they were angry, almost combative coming out. And then the press conferences and stuff. And like, you are taking millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions from a country that is currently, in the news for human rights violations, and major ones as well. And so and the players getting asked at the press conferences, and they're all just being flippant about it. I'm like, yeah, you signed up for this, sir. You cashed the check. And these are legit questions. These aren't PGA Tour media plants, or they might be, but no, these are reporters. Like, no, we want to talk about golf. Listen, you made it not about golf.
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem. You made it not about golf. Guaranteed appearance fees plus a purse. Can we just be honest then? Yeah, just answer, and just say, it doesn't really matter when my bank account's this full. But again, you flip on the other side and you're like, well, all right, can we look into the closet of all the PGA executives? Can we see what they're doing? Well, I promise you, all their closet combined still isn't probably equal to what has happened overseas. So you have that side of it. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
wait, there's more. Keep going.
But I'm also not. Did we all just get a conscience now? Is that what we're saying? Like, did we all just say, hey, it's like, that's not. Do you want to talk about the history of human rights abuses and, in PGA or in golf or in your own town? Like, let's not be the golf is the pillar of morality, and the PGA is the pillar of morality, right? Like, I'm surprised Tiger played for a very long time. I'm surprised that He was let into some courses. Let's not get to the point where we're saying, yeah, but look at them. I'm really a big fan of looking at our own backyard.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Well,
so on a business side, and again, sorry again for tangents that I go off of and go on, is that they can't come at it like that. You didn't get all the players you wanted. You didn't get the media deal you wanted. Okay, then what do you do? How are you different other than paying the players the money? Because if you already paid me the money, well, the competition isn't as important. If I get an appearance fee, right, that's my money. Is there a competitive balance to it? Is it like all those things that go into it? Golf is fairly simple. Yes. There's a ball, there's a hole, and there's a bunch of sticks you can use to get it to that point. It's what can we do around it that might be interesting then.
and
And so
I
far,
agree with that. And my long-term view on this, and will remain to be seen in year two and beyond with Liv, but Greg Norman, love him or hate him, being Australian, he is very much aware of the template that was built for cricket, a globally popular sport that was even more mired in tradition and etiquette, and this is the way we do it, than probably golf is. And there's a gentleman named of Kerry Packer, an Australian businessman in the 70s, that in a way was the Greg Norman of cricket, that over time condensed it from 5 days, which people are Canadian and even our American viewers here that don't know much about cricket, the best way to describe a cricket match, and I'm no cricket expert at all, is imagine a baseball game that lasts 9 innings a day for 5 days. And if it ends in a tie, everybody's cool with that. Does that sound good? People are like, that sounds terrible. So, how are you going to expand your audience and
yeah,
grow the game? So, what they did is they compressed it down to what's called 50 overs. So, it takes just one day, like a whole day, and now down to what's called 2020. So, just 20 overs. So, when they consulted with the NFL and the NBA to add the other elements to it. And now there is the Indian Premier League that's been going on for almost 10 years. And it is the franchises, each of them are worth more than $1 billion. So
yeah,
reason I put this out here, Scott, is my thinking, maybe I'm giving Greg too much credit here, but I think he's playing the long game because as you touched on, he does seem to have this spigot of money that keeps running that's not going to turn off anytime soon. So he should have the runway to do it. That how do you make things different? And I believe what he's trying to do is create franchises over time
yeah,
with the teams, and he's got the team play.
yeah,
And right now, the teams, the names are silly and it doesn't connect with people, but that doesn't matter because it's you got to experiment like an entrepreneur. And as we know with teams, that you have loyalty and there's
right.
stories, there's crushing defeats and memorable wins and everything
And
and
changes in
rivalries.
personnel, and there's a
Like
new
going,
player, and the guy who's been on the team for 10 years is going to lose his spot to this young and upcoming player. And yeah, exactly.
and
That's the
that's
way
my
to do it.
that's my take is I think that's where they're going to go with this. That and that will take some time, but ultimately the
Well,
value, what are we going to sell? You don't have a television deal, but being on other platforms that connect with young, whether it's Discord or Twitch, that can connect with new audiences, that could work also. But my take on it is it's all about the team thing and
yeah,
ultimately selling 32 franchises
yeah.
that they think may have or hope that it will have the value of an NFL or an NBA team in the day. And I know
I'm
you
one,
get
yeah.
this
I'm
because I've got a
100. Yeah, I'm 100 going that route, and I'm going to go even further on it here. I'm going to have it like once a quarter. I'm going to have it like e-gaming style, like League of Legends team, 100 Thieves type of stuff here, where we're going to have our team, our foursome, but only there's going to be one's a driver, one's the gunner, one's like the fairway, one's short game, one's putter. That's four, and you only pick those four. Who's ever the best at this, and then you really hone in on this guy. Why is he the driver? Well, on average, blah 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 blah. Right, and either you do that for the whole round, or you switch it up every whatever it's going to be. Like just these real kind of small, but then it's like player. This guy is the best putter in the league for this thing, and he just got traded. He just got traded over here because they needed a
yeah.
better drive. Like all those type of things you bring that don't exist in because it's looking at what do you like you're saying that like what is team things like you said MLB and everything else. Where do the team aspects happen that makes it exciting that you can bring over to a solo sport? So then it's like it's almost like the Davis Cup type of thing, but not like that, where you can actually really get down to it because it's an interesting thing. You mentioned the cricket league. I was reading about the pro lacrosse league,
Hmm.
where one of the players, about like the places, like the players were, they had like two other jobs. Like you're not getting paid next anything.
Right.
And the founder, I think I just saw it in the Hustle, with the newsletter. The Hustle was really good. And he's like, but he himself had 1 million followers on Instagram stuff, and he started working on that, made the players part of it, and pushed the players and all the real access and everything else. And now each franchise is worth much more money than they ever were before, and players can play full time. It's those things of thinking outside of those classical structures, but that's different because that's an upstart, right? That's
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
because you have to create, because also it's different for, let's say, lacrosse or cricket, because we're going to new audiences, new markets. So it's even the basics of the game. Because if you, in marketing, if you have to create awareness, not of a brand, but of an entire sport, that's a whole different game. There's a youth level buy-in you want to do. It's a 10, 15-year plan type of stuff. Just look at Toronto and basketball and the
Yes.
run from where we're doing, and how it's where people play and players, and go back 20 years and stuff. You can almost track it where it goes. But this isn't about an awareness of a sport of golf. This is an awareness that there's another league in the sport of golf, and it can be done different or better. Well, what are the complaints? So if I'm doing this, if they brought me in and said, here's $1 trillion to do this, so I'm looking at it and saying, look, let's look at every single thing that's a complaint about golf first. But it's a mistake to only look at that, because you have to look at the other side of why people watch, but also why people don't. Whether it's participation, because participation equals viewership a lot of the times. People have to have some kind of frame of reference a lot. I don't know a lot of people who watch golf who've never played, right? There's a real good trade-off to that. So I'm looking at that saying, so what do people not like about PGA? Is it, and I don't know. Like I don't watch, I haven't watched tournaments in a very long time, but is it the length of time? Is it the way it's just so quiet? Everything's very quiet. And so when he comes up for the putt, we're going to make sure that we just kind of, okay, here it goes. Do I want people just screaming at something? And again, is it Happy Gilmore? Is that what I'm missing?
Yeah.
Is that where it works? And it's really a year. And look, I know they've done it. I read I think it was McKinsey. I can't remember who did the consulting report for LIV, but I looked through a bunch of it, and it was that same thing. It was, look, if this is going to work, is what you need to do, which
Right.
is steal all the players and get a major TV. So that's pretty much what it boils down to on it. And they didn't get some of those. And that's the problem, is because they wanted to compete product to product.
And see,
Right.
I find it interesting. I'm probably not as in depth as you did, but I saw the McKinsey report also. And I do agree with some of that. But this whole idea that, once again, it's a finite market, where I think it's an expanding market, expanding into, the 7+ billion people on the planet. There's way more people that can become golf fans by creating the different scenario, just like cricket did. And cricket, the old guard just fought tooth and nail not to change. We weren't trying to get rid of the old 5-day test match traditional at all. But their biggest fear was, again, because they thought they were going to lose control. Just so we talked about earlier about, bosses, not leaders, but bosses, having people live in fear and not sharing ideas. Same type of thing, that there's just this fear in cricket that this new thing is going to ruin or tarnish the traditional thing, where in fact the opposite happened. All of a sudden became this gateway that all these younger people that didn't give a shit about cricket before, now it's like, well, this is kind of cool. It's edgier, it's fun, it's more engaging. It only takes 2 hours, 3 hours to play. And now they like that. Guess what? Then they get a little older, more sophisticated. Then they start getting in through the funnel into the other way. So I think golf has that opportunity also, which is I think I believe in coexisting, because I don't believe that all the time in some naive way, but I think in this case here that they're providing different products. Yeah, the fact they're taking their players and that there is fear there, that's a bit of an issue. but I think there's room for both of them to exist in a healthy way if they'd figure out a way to get along. Because some of the examples they used before the PGA Tour was, well, you pay them all this money. What's the incentive competitively to really play your best? It's like, well, hold on. Every other major sport, you're under contract for 1 year to 10 years. Do you see those players mailing it in? No, they want to win because they're passionate about it, and
Right.
ultimately that's it's
They're
performance
they're
driven.
competitor they're competitors, and they've gotten to this point. They've been competing their whole life in a singular driven sport. You're on your own doing this type of thing, so it's like it's a DNA thing. They're in there. They're either it's like, yeah, I totally agree that it will certainly be competitive. And look, I think competition is good in almost any scenario for everything. So just having a competitor to the PGA, it's like, I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for people. Anybody who gets into something more as a pastime or a sport or a hobby or is wonderful. I think time enjoyed is never time wasted. It's just the circumstances of it, and I do not see anytime soon of them making amends and learning to live next door to each other. I don't see the PGA giving up on those stuff. I just see it getting more kind of contentious. I see more of this people threatening to pull tour cards or this, and but it's also a shift in sport. There's a bunch of shifts in sport that people are not comfortable with because the powers that be are not comfortable with. The problem
Mhm.
is this is a power that be disrupting it for another power that be. That's the problem. I wish it was an upstart, something else or somewhere
Yeah,
else. But the problem is you just need a truck ton of money
you do.
to do it. But you see the nil type of stuff in college athletics nowadays, where athletes can make money. Very different in recruiting nowadays because of that. And like there's shift. People, we do not like change, and especially we don't like disruption, which is change without time to resist it. And I really think Live is a good example of disruption. Like I said, there was not a lot of heads up. There was not a lot of notice comparatively to like if the PGA was making a tour change, it would take 3.5 years to announce it. It's like, because they're the establishment. That's just how the establishment works in most industries. So competition always good, just the source not so much.